So, as a little kid, I remember getting splinters in my hands and fingers frequently. I say I remember and I say frequently because it was such a painful experience, I may have overblown the number of occurrences in my memory. It wasn't just getting a sliver that was painful, though it certainly was. It was that when I would go to my dad with that sliver, he would make this whole operation out of its removal. He would start by sanctifying the tweezers, which was really just sanitizing them, but he was setting them aside for a special purpose. And he would make sure he got the lighting right, maybe with a big desk lamp, and just make sure he could see when he went in. Then he'd take my hand and he'd go digging around in there until he found the sliver and got it out. And I'm kind of amazed, just knowing my tolerance for pain or lack thereof, that I even would go to my dad with a sliver, right? But I think at some point he or someone else explained to me about gangrene. And I actually don't know, I've never verified the scientific accuracy of my understanding of gangrene, but just there was this concept that I was taught that if the sliver got in there and stayed in there, it could infect to the point that it became gangrene, which is this mysterious thing even to me now. I just have visions of turning green from it for some reason, but it could spread from there, and that could lead to you losing a finger. It could lead to you losing your hand or your whole arm, and it could potentially kill you. I think if it got to your heart. Again, this is like my little kid understanding of this, and I've done no further research. But I think that's why I would tell my dad, because I was more afraid of the gangrene and the potential of dying from it than I was of having that splinter dug out of my hand. And it's funny because this past week I was with some of my nephews and nieces, and one of my nephews came to me and he says, I got a splinter. We were playing out in the yard. I got a splinter in my finger. I'm like, oh, you're going to have to go get the tweezers. But I don't think he trusted me because he got his mom to take it out for him. So anyways, but I've been thinking about this a lot lately, especially in the context of how we deal with healing in the church specifically. And of course, the current climate has brought this up, right? We're looking at the Black community and even the youngest generation of Americans right now, and we're saying, why can't they just get over something that happened 155 years ago? Like, if you would just move on, this wouldn't be an issue. And we see that a lot in the church, especially regarding the issue of sexual abuse, where a lot of times young children are brought into meetings with their abusers, and they're told they have to forgive them right then and there, and then move on from it. Otherwise, they're the problem and not the abuser. So I think this is very important in the church, just as we talk about the broader subject of healing in the church, because it's simply not true that if you just move on from something, you're healed from it, right? It can fester, it can spread, it can lead to loss if you don't dig it out fairly quickly. The longer you wait, the more painful it's going to be. And that's really the heart of what I have to say about that. Healing is not moving on. You have to go in, you've got to get that sliver out, you've got to cleanse that wound, and the longer you wait, the more painful it's going to be. And that's really the heart of what I have to say about that. Healing is not moving on. You have to go in, you've got to get that sliver out, you've got to cleanse that wound, and the longer you wait, the more painful it's going to be. And the longer you wait, the more painful it's going to be, the more loss there's going to be. So I hope that sheds some light on what we're seeing in our current climate right now. And I hope it prompts us to maybe move towards healing together. Especially within the church, a compassionate heart goes a long way. When somebody comes to me and shares their story of abuse, I say, I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm not taking responsibility for it, but I am genuinely heartbroken about what this person has gone through. I say thank you for sharing that with me, because I know it's not easy to share injustice. Like there's something especially I think in the American mind and in the American church, where we kind of, it's more convenient to us if injustice doesn't exist. And so we don't want to acknowledge it at all. But just saying, thank you for sharing that with me, because they trust you enough to share that there's been injustice in their life, and they know you're going to acknowledge that. That's an important place to occupy. And then ask, like, how can I contribute to your healing? You don't have to have contributed to their pain in order to contribute to their healing. And look, we don't have to do any of this. That is the reality. We do not have to go in and examine things that have happened throughout our history as a nation. We absolutely don't have to do that. But don't expect that it's going to get better if we don't. Do not expect that it's going to get better if we don't. We have wounds that need to be healed, and they're going to come at this point with some loss, with some sacrifice. That healing will have to take place. And don't expect that if we don't do the work that this is going to go away or get better. It's just going to keep spreading. So that's all I have to say this week. And that applies in the current climate, but it also applies to healing in general and how we approach that in the church. So I hope you've heard me and received this well. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful week.